OPB Podcasts.
From the Gert Boyle studio, it's OPB Politics Now for Thursday, December 11th. The redrawing of political maps is perhaps one of the most intensely political acts elected officials undertake. And in Central Oregon, the effort is prompting the familiar outcry of gerrymandering and rigged maps. In Eastern Oregon, the groundwater has been contaminated for decades. And now, residents are suing two companies accused of causing the pollution. For this very special episode of the podcast, we are heading east of the Cascades. Welcome to the podcast. I'm OPB Politics reporter Lauren Dake.
I'm OPB Rural Communities reporter Antonio Sierra.
I'm OPB Central Oregon reporter Catherine Steyer-Martinez.
Thank you both for joining us. Catherine, you're in Bend. I'll just start out by saying that. Let's start with you. Okay, so political maps, we know they really matter. They can influence the balance of power for years to come. So maybe it's no surprise that in Deschutes County, this process has sparked so much political outcry. But let's just start at the beginning. Why are the commissioners talking about redrawing the maps in Deschutes County in the first place?
Right. So to talk about how we got to districts, we actually have to go back to last year's November election. That's when Deschutes County voters decided to add 2 more commissioners to the board, growing it from 3 to 5 members. And this is a fast-growing county. It's politically diverse depending on where you are in Bend, Redmond, Sisters, or Lapine. And it only recently flipped blue overall. So Deschutes County voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and then went for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the following general elections. But the county, with its at-large seats, has been Republican-led for the past decade. County commissioners started talking about creating districts about a week after the election. They all either supported the idea of creating districts or wanted to explore it more. And eventually, those conversations led to the creation of a committee that would eventually propose a new district map, which is what happened last month.
So tell us what the map that this committee is proposing actually does.
Yeah, these maps divide up the county into 5 districts. The city of Bend would get split into essentially 2 districts, and then 3 other Central Oregon towns and their rural environs would each have their own district as well. Opponents of the map say this clusters Democrats into the 2 Bend districts and leaves the others more Republican-leaning areas.
You had some really interesting stories about members of the public showing up to testify on this issue and to protest a canceled meeting. And then the next meeting, at least 2 of the commissioners were unwilling to take public testimony. Just tell us about the public input in this process so far.
Yeah, there are people who support the idea of creating districts and like the map. And then there are others who are in favor of districts but don't like the map. And then there are people who are opposed to both. The biggest accusation is that the map is gerrymandered to favor potential Republican candidates. At a recent county commission meeting, it was nearly full with attendees who held signs calling the map rigged. Officially, this commission is a nonpartisan body, but it often falls along partisan lines. There's 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat. At a meeting last week, their discussion was tense. The lone Democrat, Phil Chang, wanted to give people the chance to speak, but the Republicans blocked that. At one point, board chair Tony DeBone and Chang, they were talking over each other.
But Commissioner, you're whipping people
is huge.
frenzy before we even receive the map officially, which we're here to do.
I'm not whipping people into a frenzy. I'm asking for people to have the opportunity who made the effort to be here because they're interested in this item to have a chance to say something.
Some people ended up shouting from their seats, and DeBone called for order.
Okay, well, that sounds like a very spicy meeting. Tell us about the current commissioners and just, where they land on this issue.
Right. So all commissioners are in favor of creating districts. It's just the way they went about it that has people split. The Republicans, DeBone and Commissioner Patty Adair, wanted to get this question out to the voters as soon as possible. Chang wanted to wait until the new commissioners joined the at-large board in 2027 before starting the conversation about how to draw districts. Chang also advocated for a system that would be similar to what they have now, allowing the entire county to vote on any commissioner up for the election, but that was shot down by his fellow commissioners, once again on party lines.
So what are the next steps in this process?
After almost 2.5 hours of presentation and discussion last week, the commissioners decided to hold a public hearing, in part to give people another chance to weigh in. And ultimately, the people of Deschutes County will have to vote on the question to make districts or not. And that could happen as soon as May.
All right, Catherine, thank you for breaking that down for us. Antonio, let's turn to you in Eastern Oregon. Last week, residents in the lower Umatilla Basin filed another class action lawsuit over contaminated groundwater that they say puts their health at risk. Who are the residents suing?
Yeah, the suit names Portland General Electric Company, or PGE, and Columbia River Processing. That is specifically a subsidiary of the Tillamook County Creamery Association. Attorneys for the residents claim that these companies add to the pollution by generating nitrate-rich wastewater. Then they sent that wastewater to the Port of Morrow, and then the Port of Morrow in turn sent that wastewater to farms for fertilization. The lawsuit comes on the heels of a similar complaint filed by the same attorneys against the Port of Morrow, large commercial farms, and animal feedlots.
Let's talk about the history here, because nitrates have been a problem in Eastern Oregon for something like 30 years, right?
Yeah, the state has known for a really long time that the lower Umatilla Basin's groundwater is polluted. And since the 1990s, it's connected that to the agriculture industry because nitrates are chemicals often found in fertilizers and wastewater. For decades, the state has relied on a local committee to produce voluntary measures for farmers and ag businesses to follow. But those recommendations haven't been fixing the problem. In fact, it's gotten worse. This year, the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality released a new analysis of the area's groundwater. Before the report came out, it had been more than a decade since the state took a comprehensive look at the pollution problems in the lower Umatilla Basin groundwater management area. That's a stretch of around 550 square miles, with farming communities in northern Morrow and northwest Umatilla counties. Overall, the DEQ tests showed the nitrate problem had become notably worse in the past decade.
And there is real reason to believe that there are some very serious health repercussions with this, right? I mean, people have linked this to concerning health outcomes. And for thousands of people, this is their main source of drinking water.
That's correct, Lauren. Attorneys for the class action lawsuit estimate thousands of people, many of them children, rely on polluted wells for tap water. Consuming high amounts of nitrates can lead to a host of problems: miscarriages, respiratory illnesses, cancer, and thyroid disease. Nitrates are also linked to blue baby syndrome. Infants who drink formula made from nitrate-contaminated water are at risk, and if untreated, the effects can be fatal.
Okay, that is so heartbreaking. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that if this was happening in Multnomah County, that Multnomah County's main source of drinking water was polluted for more than 30 years, something would be done about it. What, if anything, has been done or is being done in Eastern Oregon?
Yeah, things have kind of picked up in recent years. This year, lawmakers passed a bill championed by Governor Tina Kotek. The governor's office has said that SB 1154 was supposed to take lessons learned from the lower Umatilla Basin and turn them into reforms. The bill streamlines the process once contaminants like nitrates are found in groundwater, allowing the state to provide a quicker response. But a lot of environmental and social justice advocates pulled support from the bill after amendments toned down the language around enforcement against specific polluters. As it stands, farmers and companies that apply nitrogen to the soil don't have to monitor it at all. But right now, the state is considering some incremental changes to this. This month, the Oregon Department of Agriculture is having meetings to finalize rules that would require basin farmers to test their soil for nitrogen before planting crops. The rules would also require farmers to develop nitrogen management plans and get those certified by an agronomist. These requirements would only apply to large farms of more than 1,000 acres to start, with smaller farms phased in later. Farmers would hold on to their own data and plans at first, and the state wouldn't inspect farmers' nitrate measurements until after the rules are in effect for 3 years.
Okay, let me just unpack that and make sure I understand that for a moment. So the new rules would require farmers in Umatilla County and northern Morrow County to test their own fields for nitrates and maintain those records, right?
Yes, that's what it would require.
And then what happens from there? I mean, what if the records determine, yes, the water is poisonous?
Yeah, I've talked with people or with representatives from the Oregon Department of Agriculture, and they have told me that they want to be sure that they left farm management decisions in the hands of farmers. I talked with ODA's Isaac Stapleton about this. He says these rules aren't intended to fix things overnight. He said that it's taken decades for nitrates to go into the groundwater, and they're hoping that over time they'll see improvements. Stapleton also says that ODA is trying to walk a middle ground between what clean water advocates want and what the ag industry is pushing for. One of the most vocal advocates for the kind of environmental concerns is Caleb Lay with Oregon Rural Action. He told me that the state bowed to industry pressure to let the industry regulate itself on a voluntary basis, and he called it a fresh coat of paint on the same approach that has failed to rein in nitrate pollution for the last 35 years. So very strong words from Caleb. Lay says he's incredibly frustrated with the Department of Ag's process. His group was also among those that pulled its support for the governor's groundwater reform bill earlier this year.
I'm curious what, if anything, you have heard from maybe the farmers. I mean, presumably they also don't want to feel responsible for people having bad health outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tricky one for them. A lot of farmers say they care about this issue. A lot of them say that they drink from private wells themselves. However, they also say that the state needs to be realistic in what they expect from them in terms of how much nitrogen they apply to their fields. They say they already try to be as efficient as they can with their fertilizers because fertilizing can be a very expensive project. So they say that they are trying to be good stewards of the land while also contributing to the economy. The Lower Umatilla Basin is a huge agricultural region, and they hold a lot of sway when it comes to how people approach this as a policy.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right. What else have you heard from people who live out there about this issue?
A lot of folks are really concerned. I think we talked about the health effects earlier, and a lot of people are concerned about can I drink the water at all? People are buying bottled water, or the state is sending them bottled water deliveries. However, I think one of the more concerning points is there's still a lot of folks, even to this day, even after many years of this being advertised as an issue, who don't know that this is a problem. They don't know that their water is unsafe to drink, or they may know and are still drinking the water. So there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of education and making sure that people know what is going on. But yeah, there's a lot of consternation out there.
Yeah, truly a rather wild story, and it's so great you're covering it, Antonio. Thank you both for joining me. Before we wrap up, though, since we have you, could we do a lightning round of some of the other hot political topics happening in your regions that, you just think people should be aware of? Catherine, let's start with you first.
Yeah, so if the district question and corresponding map goes to Deschutes County voters, the soonest it could happen would be next May. That's also when a historic 4 county commission seats will be up for grabs. 14 people have filed to run, including incumbent DeBone, and that's a lot for Deschutes County. But it could change. Candidates have until mid-March to file or withdraw, so we could see that number of candidates change, especially if Deschutes Democrats' endorsements shape the field as they have in years past. Patty Adair isn't running for re-election because she's running for Congress to replace Democrat Janelle Bynum in House District 5. This swing district includes Bend, but it also wraps over the Cascades to Happy Valley and Portland area, and is expected to be one of the most contentious House races in the country in terms of campaign spending.
Antonio, feel free to hop in.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll go from one lawsuit to another. Back in October, there were a group of homeless residents of Pendleton who sued the city of Pendleton for basically over enforcing their homelessness ordinances and making it very difficult to find a place to sleep at night. They sued them in state court. And the case hasn't really advanced too much because both sides are currently negotiating on some potential policy changes to how the city approaches enforcement of homeless people sleeping on public property. However, the city is also facing pressure from a group of business owners and other prominent Pendleton officials who actually want the city to take a harder stance. And they've indicated that they want the city to focus on policies that would make it easier for city officials to remove homeless people from the town or send them to jail or prison. So it's a very delicate situation there, and I imagine that we'll continue to hear more on that front in the coming months.
Certainly. Thank you both for joining us. This week's episode of OPB Politics Now was recorded in the Gert Boyle studio. It was produced by Andrew Thien. Our audio engineer is Nalene Silva. Our music comes from Audio Network. We will be back next week with more political news from across the Pacific Northwest. Until then, you can find all of OPB's reporting at opb.org. Thank you for your support, and thank you for listening.